Roy. I'm Jill Stein. I'm chair of the Division of Biology and Chemistry. And on behalf of the division, I'd like to welcome you all here to the November 13th, 2014 installment of our seminar series. As Dr. DeRoy said, we've been doing this for years, and we will continue to do this, and you're all welcome to join us any week that we have a seminar. As you can see from the slide, this particular talk is also sponsored by Congressman Payne's office, 10th Congressional District. And I'd like to introduce Michael Gray, who's a representative from Congressman Payne's office. He's here.
ECC grad.
Proud ECC grad.
Yes.
And this particular seminar series is also sponsored by the Essex County College Ebola Virus Education and Outreach Task Force, which you will hear more about from Dr. Mittman. So I'm going to just introduce quickly all of our speakers. And also we'd like to thank Rite Aid for being here and participating and handing out the bags that many of you were able to pick up out front. Okay, so I'm going to introduce all of our presenters now, and then as they come up, I'll introduce each one of them. So we have, and I'll do it in alphabetical order now. So we have Dr. Jose Chestnut from Biology and Chemistry Business, Dr. Frank DeRoy, Dr. Eunice Kamunde, Dr. Jeffrey Lee, Dr. Scott Mittman, and Dr. Ann Humphrey, all from Biology and Chemistry, and Professor Reynaldo Zamudio from Okay, each presenter will speak for approximately 3 to 5 minutes, and I have my watch on to make sure that it's only 3 to 5 minutes. And at the end, we will have time for question and answer period. And there are microphones on, there's a microphone over there, and there's a microphone over there. So if you have a question, please step up to the microphone. Okay, and so without further ado, our first speaker is Dr. Jeffrey Lee.
Thank you. Next slide, please. And the next slide. Back up one. There we go. Approximately 5,000 before Common Era, with the development of irrigated agriculture and the growth of large population centers, large being about 5,000 people or more, there was a coincidence with the spread of viruses from domesticated animals to humans. This is how we got measles, from our friends the animals. Next slide, please. 430. No, one more back. It's a double skip, I guess. No, that's 4. No, one more 4. That must be your virus. Okay, never mind. Back up one. No, that's forward. Try that. Okay, we'll go for that. What you missed was the plague of Athens, about 430 BCE during the second year of the Peloponnesian War. Not technically Ebola, but the symptoms as described in historical record are very similar. Now we go forward to Germany. Or Zaire. No, I'm good. Okay, 1967. 7 deaths in Germany and Yugoslavia traced to a virus from imported Ugandan African green monkey tissues. The virus is classified as a severe viral hemorrhagic fever, never seen before, named Marburg virus after Marburg, Germany. This is Marburg, Germany. Next slide. Yes. 1976, 400 deaths in the Sudan and Zaire traced to a virus from a region near the Zaire's Ebola River. This is the river. Virus giving also a severe viral hemorrhagic fever never seen before, named Ebola. Both viruses are given a new name, the filoviridae or the worm viruses. Next slide. 1989, West Virginia lab outside of Washington, 4 scientists handling cynomolgus monkeys from the Philippines contract Ebola. Out of 160 monkeys, over half died within 2.5 months. All 4 technicians recovered. This instance leads to a best-selling book by Richard Preston called The Hot Zone, and the word Ebola enters the American Dictionary. Next slide. 1995, Ebola outbreak, Kikwit, Zaire, population 300,000. Approximately 300 deaths is best known. This was the first international press response to an Ebola outbreak, and maybe more importantly, the first direct observation of the effect of clinical precautions or lack of precautions on the spread of the virus. Next slide, please. 97 through about 04, various small outbreaks in Central Africa, all small, all contained. Next slide, please. Current day, 2014, major Ebola outbreaks in Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. As of this morning, over 13,000 cases, 8,000 confirmed by lab, over 5,000 deaths. Some infected persons traveled to Mali, Nigeria, Spain, United States. As of 2 days ago, Mali was free. Second case came in, and it's going back. So Mali's now back in the hot seat again. Next slide. Where do we go from here? We do not know. Thank you.
I'd just also like to welcome the VP who's here today, Dr. Stepley Johnson. Okay, and our next speaker will be Dr. Eunice Kamunge.
Thank you all for coming, and as Dr. Stein said, my name is Dr. Eunice Kamunge. I'll take only about 3 to 5 minutes, as I was instructed, and I will go over the physiology of this virus. So we really need to look at how this virus looks like. The virus, slightly mentioned by Dr. Lee, is really an RNA virus. When you're classifying viruses, remember these are poisonous chemicals that are able to cause infections in us. And they will contain a nucleic acid that could be either DNA or RNA. So this virus happens to have an RNA genome. Its size, it's very small. In fact, viruses, you measure them with very tiny units that you call nanometers. And its size is actually about 970 for the newly released one. And the longest one you can get will be about 1400 nanometers with only 80 nanometers diameter. So you can start appreciating. It's not even a micrometer. It's smaller than a micrometer. It belongs to a family of Viroviridae, which means these viruses, their genome, even when it's enclosed, looks like a tiny thread, if you want to look at it that way. And it also contains some special enzymes that will help it to multiply when it gets into the cell. In fact, it has 7 genes that will code for numerous enzymes that it's going to use to replicate. It also has an envelope. And what it does, when it gets into the cell, we're going to come to a little snapshot of it. It takes over the host cell and controls everything that is going on, expresses its own genes, and now starts making its own viruses inside the human cell. Back a little bit. I think we moved a little bit too fast. Here's a nice picture that I need us to look at. There it is. The shape, as I was trying to describe, is like a thread. You imagine a thread being twisted. And within this shape, you can see the genome. It's RNA here, and it's all threaded throughout this internal section of the virus. It also has some spikes, and it's going to use the spikes to attach onto the host cell. And once it attaches onto the host cell, it cannot go back. The cell has to swallow it. Now you can appreciate why it is that deadly. Being that it's an RNA virus, in fact, it's an RNA virus that also makes a copy of its own RNA and now uses that copy to multiply from. Next one, please. When it gets into the cell, for it to become from 1 to maybe 10 or 20, it has to multiply inside the human cell. And there are sequences of steps that it's going to take. First one is attachment. And guess what it's going to use to attach? the very receptors that we saw on the cell surface, which means those receptors also must match the host receptors for it to be able to dock evenly. After it attaches, it's going to penetrate into the cell, and it's during this time that it's going to remove its envelope with the enzymes that it has, and it start now releasing the nucleic acid in the host cell. And this is the time the enzymes that it has will take over. What I have here, I need us to focus on only on the second slide, the one that is at the bottom. You can imagine it here. This is a typical case of the virus, how it will look like. These are the spikes that we talked about, and I need you to imagine this being part of the host cell. These are the receptors on the host cell that the virus is supposed to or attaches onto to dock. After it attaches, I say the process is irreversible. It's like the cell swallows it because it engulfs it and allows it to get inside, and when it gets inside, it's going to now start taking over what's going on in the host cell, which means it's going to use your own nucleic acid to multiply. Next slide, please. Next one. Here, I need us to appreciate what is going on. So the virus attaches, the cell swallows it, it releases its nucleic acids, including the envelope, starts making copies of its own new nucleic acid, including all the components it's going to need, and eventually it's going to bud out. It's this budding out that leads to the signs and symptoms that we're going to hear later on. Next one, please. When it assembles all the particles that it needs, then it's going to bud out, as I talked a little bit. Next one. Here, we are just looking at a simulated format of how it's going to bud out. Imagine the blue being your cell. Here goes the RNA of the virus. It picks up all the genetic components it needs, attaches onto the host cell membrane. If this is bacteria, we also have plasma membrane because we are human beings. And it's going to pick a little bit of your cell membrane, which is the part that covers the cell, and it'll grab it with itself and run out with it by any means necessary. What does that mean? If this happened in the bloodstream, this virus will pierce through, and Dr. Chestnut will take over from there.
Dr. Chestnut will be our next speaker.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to speak about the sign and symptom and the treatment of Ebola virus. The symptoms maybe appear anywhere from 2 to 21 days. The averages for the symptom appear is between 8 to 10 days. And the early symptom for Ebola virus, and you can see that most of the time in the TV, is going to start with fever, like a regular flu. It's going to headache, joint pain, and most of the time, because of fever, the patient is going to be a little bit weak. Over the time, the symptom of the Ebola can increase after the 10 days, and they can go to nausea, vomit, diarrhea, conjunctivitis, some kind of edema or rash in the skin, chest pain, abdominal pain, because the blood, the diarrhea has some blood, they also can go to lose a lot of weight. The reason of the bleeding in people who have Ebola is because the virus going to produce damage, and I don't want to go too deep to the physiology of the virus because most of the people here maybe it's not belong to the biology department, but it's produce some damage to the endothelium of the capillary, might produce damage to the endothelium, the capillary of the blood vessel, making people to die because internal bleeding. To weekly people with Ebola, we're going to use increased fluid, IV fluid, and we have to balance the electrolyte because the diarrhea and the vomit. We're also going to give oxygen and measure blood pressure, and we're going to treat any infection who is a complication of people who really the immune system are attacked by a virus. To this point, they don't have no vaccine for Ebola virus, and they don't have no antiviral medication. Most of what we go try to treat the patient according with the complication of the Ebola virus present. To people recovering from the Ebola virus, we saw what's happening in Texas. They didn't do the diagnostic at time. When they did the diagnostic, it was too late, and the Duncan was very high internal bleeding. They know the patient who was diagnostic at time, and the immune system was respond, they can recover very quick from the Ebola virus. Most of them going to, after they recover from the Ebola, they can develop antibody. That's why most of the patients who recover, the blood we using to do a blood transfusion to the another person who have Ebola virus. That's happening with the doctor in New York and the nurse in Texas. At this point, they have experimented vaccine for Ebola virus, who is in the phase 1 of the clinical trial. The phase 1 means they cannot use in human beings because they don't know about the safety and the effectivity of the vaccine. The diagnosis for the Ebola, they do a test, they call the, I'm not going to be to the technical part, they call enzyme leak immunosorbent test, they call LISA test, and another test they call PCR. Those tests I do by after they get the blood, they do by the CDC, who are the lab who is involved and do a diagnostic for Ebola. The complication. Most of the people with Ebola virus, even if they recover, one of the complications going to be joint pain and problem with vision. I think the next person who's going to be going to Dr. Juroy or Professor, he's going to talk about the prevention of the Ebola virus. Thank you. See you.
Our next speaker will be Professor Zamudio from the nursing department.
Well, we nurses, our responsibility is really promotion of health and prevention of the spread of diseases. Okay, essentially this is what we do to prevent the spread. Wash hands frequently, or use an alcohol-based sanitizer. I think everybody knows how to do that. Avoid contact with blood and body fluids of any person, particularly someone who is sick. Do not handle items that may have come in contact with an infected person's blood or body fluids. Do not touch the body of someone who has died of Ebola. Do not touch bats and non-human primates or their blood and fluids. And do not touch or eat raw meat prepared from these animals. You know, in some of those places, they do that. So that's why they're more prone to develop the disease. Avoid facilities where Ebola patients are being treated, and Seek medical care immediately if you develop fever, headache, muscle pain, fatigue, diarrhea, vomiting, stomach pain, or unexplained bruising or bleeding. Limit your contact with other people until and when you go to the doctor. Do not travel anywhere else beside a healthcare facility. Because this is a public health emergency, these are some clues for you for mental health. It is natural to be upset when you think your health or the health of your loved one is threatened. Pay attention to your own feelings and take care of your own emotional need. By doing so, you can better help friends and family members handle their concern. Anxiety can be related to fear of the unknown. Here are some ways you can cope with the stress and anxiety. Limit your exposure to graphic news stories. Get accurate and timely information from reliable sources. The operative word there is reliable sources. Educate yourself about the specific health hazard. Maintain your daily routine if possible. Exercise, eat well, and rest. Stay active, physically and mentally. Stay in touch with family and friends. Find comfort in your spiritual and personal beliefs. Keep a sense of humor, and always share your concern with others. Thank you.
Dr. DeRoy will be our next speaker.
Thank you. My topic is titled Science and its relationship to politics and the media. I should have added science and technology. For many of us, science and technology is like the same thing. But science, of course, is the idea or the theories that people formulate. Technology is the application. Many of us are under the mistaken impression that science comes first and then technology evolves as a result of the ideas. But sometimes technology occurs, knowledge of these technological applications occurs before the explanation. One example in history is the development of vaccines. Dr. Jenner in England in the 1790s was a medical doctor who also treated the people in his community who were farmers. And he came across the idea that some of his patients who were women who used to take care of milking the cows used to get from the cows a disease that they called cowpox. And when they developed that disease, they developed, as he saw it, immunity against a dreaded disease at that time known as smallpox. And therefore, as a result of observing this, when a woman brought her son to him to be treated for smallpox, it occurred to him to take some of the fluid from the women who had developed cowpox and inject it into the young boy. Now, he knew nothing about T cells, nothing about complement proteins, right, which we know today, theoretical knowledge and practical aspects, especially since the HIV pandemic. Right, we have learned a lot. So he didn't know that, but he was able to develop a vaccine. We call a vaccine now, right? Prior to even having the theory behind it. Now, essentially, right? So there's your technology. So here we have, how does science and technology impact our lives? Well, there are really 6 areas that I identified. There are more than this, by the way, but agriculture. There's more food today than ever before, okay? And we can grow more things in an acre of land than we could years ago. Another area, medicine, obviously. All right, the field of medicine has enabled people to survive, the diseases such as smallpox and other types of diseases. Okay, communications. The fact that we are here right now in Newark, New Jersey, and something happens 10,000 miles from here, at this moment, almost instantaneously, we will know about it. I remember as a teenager going to my literature class in 1963, when we heard that President Kennedy had been assassinated in Dallas. And that was one of the first times that the media was able to grab the attention of the people. All right, and for 3 days, all we did was watch the television. It wasn't like that before, all right, but grabbed our attention, all right? So communication today is greater. It's good in a way, obviously, because you know a lot. But the problem is, I think, the internet, because the internet is not regulated. I'm not saying you should regulate it. I'm just saying in terms of the information out there. As you mentioned, as our speakers have mentioned to you already, okay, it is important that you are a tutored listener, that you know what is going on, all right? Because there are a lot of things out there that are not true, all right? And the more education we have, the better off we are. An informed public is the key, to preventing the situations that are occurring in other places in the world. Another area that is also affected by science and technology is transportation. Okay, we can now go distances, great distances in short times. Yes, in a way, this country has been blessed because we are far away from the rest of the world. But that no longer exists in a sense. Because of our airports, because of the transportation centers that we have, okay? Historically, as I was reading about the bubonic plague, where was the first place that the bubonic plague entered Europe? Through the port cities. The cities that received ships, all right, and transportation. We, here in Newark, we are a port city, okay? New York is a port city. San Francisco, all right, down New Orleans. These are port cities, and that's the entry point where many of these diseases occur. But how can we prevent that? We're human. Do you understand that we communicate with each other? All right, we're social beings. All right, we can't construct a wall to prevent people from communicating with each other. You understand that? But my point is that because of science and technology, we have a great transportation system. And finally, I hope so, we'll have better employment as a result of science and technology, better paying jobs. But my point is that because of science, what the public in general is not tutored in science. I'm glad that my colleagues are here today to speak to you in the language, plain language. It is important that we in the field of science speak in plain language, right? We also need interdisciplinary courses, all right, that are taught at colleges and universities that integrate the sciences with the humanities and the social sciences. So that when people hear something, all right, they're not frightened in a sense, because they have an understanding, right? And my final point is, if you understand the scientific method, then you have an understanding of what science is about. All right, a philosopher once said, we understand more than we know. What does that mean? Don't ask me to name every single species of animal, because there are a million species at least. But I understand the concept of an animal. If you understand the concept of science, that science is a collective experience, I am glad to see that we're working together, all right? Back in New Orleans, when they had that, back in the Gulf, back 4 years ago, when they had the terrible oil spill, all right, in the Gulf of Mexico. What I read was there was a team of scientists, one of whom, actually the head of one of the cabinets in Washington was a Nobel Prize winner in physics that met every day to see how they could resolve that issue. We can do it as a human race, okay? We have to work together, collaboratively. That's why we have these seminars, to exchange ideas. Thank you very much.
Dr. Mittman will be our final speaker, and then we will have time for questions and answers. announcers.
So, hello everybody. We've heard a whole lot about Ebola, some technical stuff, some things to think about, but you're probably now wondering, well, what are we doing more locally about it? You know, this crisis is going on, you see a lot in the news, what are we doing here, closer to home? Well, one of the things I want to share with you is that President Gibson has worked with Congressman Payne of the 10th Congressional District, and as working with other institutions and agencies and representatives from the college in forming a Ebola virus task force. So not only are they looking towards this crisis here at home, they're also looking to see if there's anything that we could do for those over in West Africa. However, more immediately, what's going on over here at Essex County College? Well, Essex County College, for the past 3 months or so, about a group of 30 folks have been meeting regularly in a group that we've called the, can you go back one? The Ebola Virus Education and Outreach Task Force. So what are the goals of this task force? Well, as you might expect, education, right? So people can learn more about what's going on. When they know more, there's less fear, right? And also reach out to make sure that folks have a better understanding. They know who to speak to, where to go when they have questions that pop up. But also, perhaps there are some things that we can do here at the college to reduce the likelihood or the potential for disease transmission. Okay, I guess so the question that's in your minds are, great, what are we doing about that now? What are some of the things that we put our heads together about, at least more immediately? Okay, next. So one of the things that we've all discussed is the development of public service announcements, PSAs, regarding proper hand washing hygiene. How many of you know what proper hand washing hygiene is? Is it running in the bathroom, rinsing your hand, wiping off in your pants real fast and running out and going? No. So one of the things that we want to do is to really let the college know on multiple fronts, using many different types of media, let you know what's the best way to wash your hands. Back. Okay, so you can expect in every bathroom, which is one of the places that we really want to be concerned with hand washing hygiene, right? That we're going to have all kinds of different placards and announcements, and they won't be boring. We want to put different ones up so you'll constantly read them, and it'll drive home, oh, oops, I should be washing my hands for about 20 seconds here to make sure I'm doing a good job. Next. So here's one of the ones you'll see. If you could see the germs, you'd be washing your hands. Next. Right? You can't see these guys, but they're all over your hands. Right? So just think every time you shake hands with somebody, huh? Okay. Next slide. All right. And then you'll see things like this, more detailed things on how to get it done. Anybody ever watch any medical shows? You see the doctors, scrubbing down? They make a really concerted effort to try and get every nook and cranny. And then finally, right, none of us can avoid colds, but many of us still get to learn that is not the way, right, to cover your mouth. Okay, next slide. So you'll see something like this around. These are the messages we're going to try and get out there. Next slide. So one of the things you can also expect is that we are going to be surveying Police Academy, West Essex, this campus, Ironbound, and other campuses to see if there's any places that, for example, if there's not a location to wash your hands in the bathroom, then you can quickly apply some gel. And then, of course, as many of you have seen, some of the gels of late now have been replenished. We're going to ensure that all of these gels are filled and functioning. And what's more, we're also going to make sure that every place that needs it will have a gel dispenser. And then finally, Everybody knows how to use a gel dispenser, right? You stick your hand underneath it, go like this, and you wipe your pants, and right? Is that how you do it? No. Well, just to be sure, we've started having instructions on top. You'll see these. We're rolling these out now, but you'll see specific instructions on how to use the gels. Next slide. Something else that we'll be doing, support staff will be adding to their normal regular cleaning regimen. They will be actually targeting handrails, elevator buttons, and doorknobs, right? All those things that people touch routinely without thinking a whole lot. Actually, I meant to include a nice picture of people's phones here. One of the worst contaminated surfaces that we deal with on a regular basis. But anyway, so you don't have to worry quite as much. You should still take precautions, but at least during flu season. By the way, this idea is not our own. Kane University, since the H1N1 crisis, they have actually been targeting these areas during flu season to look to reduce the incidence of flu. By the way, this works great for Ebola, works for a number of communicable diseases. Next. Another thing we're going to look at is the feasibility of, at least temporarily during this crisis, hiring a health and safety officer. So we're going to look at that. Maybe we can partner with the state buildings across the street to see if maybe we can work something out in terms of having a respondent here that we can count on who knows what should be done. And then finally, developing some formal protocol about if a student falls ill in class, what do we do? We don't want other people to get sick from that, right? But we want to have response quickly that student will be taken care of, at least to the best that we can bring medical care. Next. So pretty much we have other things we're talking about, but one thing I didn't mention here, I just got approval from the president to announce the fact that we will be renovating bathrooms. Not we, but the college will be renovating bathrooms. One of the suggestions that came back from the H1N1 panel, much like this, was to have touchless water faucets. So this will be something that will be getting rolled out as we have new bathrooms. You no longer have to wash your hands and then, recontaminate them when you shut the faucet off. So that concludes what I have to say. We will continue meeting, by the way, and I just wanted you to be sure that the task force represents all areas of the college. We have folks from public safety to nursing faculty. We have facility staff to the athletic department. We have everybody on board, everybody from the president down to student representatives. So everybody's voice will be heard, and we're making sure that we're going to do the best that we can to help educate, inform, and protect our college community. Thank you.